Tingle. You know him. You probably have strong feelings about him one way or another. He's one of the most iconic Zelda NPCs of all time. In fact, he's so iconic and, popular, apparently, in Japan that he even got his own games. 4 of them. Today we're going to be taking a look at all 4 of the Tingle games and seeing just what they're all about. I don't ever see anyone talking about these bad boys, so I think it's high time somebody does. To start us off is the first game, Tingle's freshly picked Rosy, Rupeeland. Here starts a trend with the Tingle games. This one was developed by Viampool but never released in America, only Japan and Europe. For some reason that TV trope title is right here. Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about the development of this game, so it's hard to understand what the hell happened here to make something like this a thing. But something I did think was interesting was that the director of Moon Remix RPG Adventure, or whatever that game is called, was the director of this game, and also its sequel. So now my standards have been raised significantly, as Moon Remix RPG Adventure is one of the most clever games of all time. I'll probably give that its own video someday. The goal in Tingle's Rosy Rupeeland is simple. You have to build up a tower near Tingle's house by giving it rupees so Tingle can become a fairy. Even though overworld traversal is similar to most Zelda games, the goal is much different, making money. However, money is also very important to how you interact with the world because you have to bargain with NPCs in order to get things done, which is really a great mechanic. This is a really interesting way for the game to create a choice in the player. Should they help build the tower more, or should they get information that might lead them to even more money? Making money is made even more complex by several items Tingle finds along the way, which you can sell to NPCs. You can even mix together several items to make ones that are worth more than they would be unmixed. I think using the stylus to mix them together is a great integration of the DS's touchscreen, plus mixing things together and seeing what the result might be is always a treat. Call me a homestuck all you want for that comment. All of this is done in Tingle's house via his cauldron. Speaking of Tingle's house, a way the game marks your progress is through furniture you collect for the top floor of Tingle's house, which is one of the coolest ways of tracking progression in any game. I love having physical collectibles in the game because of how natural they feel. I mean, I collect things from my adventures in the real world, too. The biggest ways to make money are through the dungeons throughout the game, which also net you 1 of 5 gems after finishing them. These gems are also required for finishing the tower, so you'll have to go out of your way to get to them. Honestly, the dungeon designs in this game are really uninspired. I'm not a fan of it, but maybe that's just because 2D Zelda dungeon design is incredibly played out at this point anyway. I can't think of a single 2D Zelda dungeon that really stands out to me. The boss fights are interesting at first, but then you fight the next one, and then you fight the next one, and then you fight the next one. They all feel like the same boss fight. Regular battles in this game are also repetitive and, yes, also tied to money. You lose some money upon entering a battle, wherein Tingle and the enemy turn into a cartoony dust cloud. Then you tap the screen to help Tingle win, and then get more money than you lost. You can go to bodyguard salons to hire people to help Tingle out in fights, but there's still an element of chance to it. I'm really not a fan of it, and I think it drags the game down a lot, though I appreciate Tingle having such a significantly different playstyle to Link. However, what really ties this game together for me isn't anything about the gameplay, but it's the presentation and the writing. Tingle's Rosy Rupeeland has beautiful sprite work. It's a joy to look at, and the visuals perfectly accentuate the comedic writing. The game has a lot of charming dialogue, and you can't stay mad at Uncle Rupee's disgusting face, even when he betrays you and turns into the final boss. Sadly, this isn't what most of your gameplay consists of. It's mostly just the dungeon crawling and searching for money, which is really repetitive, but the charming sprite art really carries the whole game. Overall, Tingle's freshly picked Rosy Rupeeland is a fun time. It has interesting gameplay systems centering on money, and a lot of moments of great comedy. The animation in the game is really stunning, and I think the writing is a lot stronger than it should be. Tingle is an odd little guy, and it's just fun to watch him sometimes. I also like the vague anti-capitalist themes in the game of how money is valued way more than it needs to be because rupees are used for everything in the game, but you know, that's just me. Instead of following up on this RPG, the next game in the Tingle series was a bizarre choice. It was a remake of Balloon Fight, just featuring Tingle instead. Now, here's the thing, I don't really like Balloon Fight. I've played like at least 10 minutes of Balloon Fight. I'm sure it's more fun with friends, but it's just not something I like to play. It's very arcadey in a way a lot of early NES games are, and that style of design doesn't appeal to me. Tingle's Balloon Fight DS is just Balloon Fight with a much more charming presentation. It's just Balloon Fight with better graphics. and Tingle. There's really no reason for me to recommend this game. Before the second RPG, there was another game that we have to talk about. It was another weird DSiWare game that never left Japan, much like Tingle's Balloon Fight DS, Too Much Tingle Pack, which was released to promote the second DS RPG. It's basically just a Tingle fortune teller, Tingle calculator, a Tingle timer, a Tingle coin flipper, and a Tingle dancing minigame. I think that maybe this should have been combined with Tingle's Balloon Fight DS, just because I think that Balloon Fight remake fits the vibe of a collection of random things. And on its own, it's not a very substantial product. Hell, maybe even throw together all of the Tingle games for DS in one little bundle, that might be interesting. Overall though, the Too Much Tingle Pack is just a cute side application, nothing really interesting here. If you want a calculator for your DSi because you don't have a phone or something, here you go, I guess. But now it's time to get into Irozuki Tingle no Koi no Balloon Trip, or as fan translators have called it, Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. This one was also developed by Vanpool like the first one, and oh boy, it's just as strange. This one was never released anywhere outside of Japan, unlike the first one, so there's no official translation. Luckily, the fan translation for this game was completed in 2018, so we all get to enjoy the game. Interestingly enough, though it shares a lot of similar mechanics to its predecessor, this game has no connection to it from a plot perspective. Instead, it follows a regular middle-aged man who gets sucked into a book on dating tips, which is apparently its own magical world. There, he meets a scarecrow, a tin woman, and a cowardly lion, who help him solve puzzles. This is an interesting approach to puzzles that I really appreciate. It reminds me a lot of Eastward's puzzle solving, where you have to use Sam and John's different distinct abilities to solve different obstacles. You have to use the three party members, with each one having their own abilities corresponding to their inspiration from the Wizard of Oz. Like the Scarecrow is small and can easily get into places, but he's stupid because he doesn't have a brain. Mainly, the game centers around Tingle flirting with and gaining the attention of 5 different women in this book world he's been transported to. I think it's really funny that of all the characters for a dating sim to be based around, Tingle was the choice. The witty writing from the first game was continued in this game as well, and so was the charming presentation. There's just a stronger focus on the characters here. Each of the girls has their own personality, and while there isn't a lot of depth to any of them, I like learning more about each of them. You have to buy them certain gifts, so rupee hunting is still present in this game. The whole gift-giving thing is very reminiscent of Harvest Moon. Anyway, this game is an extension of all the things that I didn't hate about the first game's mechanics. Like, combat has been completely omitted, which is a huge upgrade for me, because the combat in the original game was awful. And they make fun of Tingle even more in this game, which is great. It's part of a larger criticism of, like, dating sims and the kind of people they're designed for. With that being said, Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love is a humorous criticism of dating sims with all the charm and brilliant sprite work of its predecessor. Though it's not connected to the first game at all plot-wise, navigating the overworld still feels just as natural as it did before. The greater focus on characters, such as your party members and the girls you have to get familiar with, is definitely a treat. Yet another game that I think is a lot more fun than it really had to be. The Tingle games are yet another surprisingly fun detour in the Zelda franchise. Charming adventures through a world that has nearly nothing to do with Zelda itself. I like the downtime from epic quests that they allow, even if Tingle himself is kind of annoying. Colorful, whimsical, critical of gross people, and comedic, the Tingle games are a slew of hidden gems in the Zelda series, and I'm frankly a bit sad that they don't get more love. This has been Arcade Everlasting, Tingle Enjoyer, signing off. Thank you for watching.